are still president and vice president. They were reelected for 2 years. And I have it on my to-do that we'll add rural caucus because I'm just going to tap this in with ASBA because it tagged over there. They as well had elections. And so now the new board chair for rural caucus is Brad Tone, who was the vice chair previously, and he's from Livingstone Range School Division. The vice chair is Scott McPherson from Prairie Land School Division. Director 1 is Lori Leach from Peace River School Division, and the second director is Jim Northcott from Golden Hills. And they have their website. Currently, right now, the member only section is just for the rep, or the rep is the only one that has access because it's still in its beta stage. But they're hoping that it will be able to go live early March of 24. And they're hoping that also the job posting function will hopefully also be ready by March of 24. Okay. 10.2 Public School Board Association. Trish.
Thank you. I sent everybody a summary email, so I won't go through this, but I'll just very quickly. Thanks again to both our superintendent and chair for joining Stacy and I on the PD day. We had some great speakers there. The first one was 3 people from the government, an ADM, an executive director, and a director. And that was about assurance framework. It kind of boiled down into funding. So they gave us some of their information, but the remarks and the questions that came from the members were things like, will there be more accommodations for students with learning disabilities during testing? It was brought up that the survey presentation and format is, the mail is still used for that, and it causes all sorts of incorrect results. And also that smaller rural schools may not have the ability to focus on certain areas that are discussed in the assessment survey, such as drama and music and art. So you get inconclusive data. The interesting response that came to a lot of these questions from the government representatives was, yes, we've heard that. Yes, we've been hearing that for quite some time. Yes, we've heard a lot of people say that. And so the response in the room was kind of like, well, so when are you going to do something about it? So anyway, it was great information though. And if anyone wants to add to that part. No.
Oh, Stacey.
Oh, go ahead.
Just to add briefly, in those comments, it was also mentioned a lot of the rural areas really don't have capacity to do the exams online, and the government officials in attendance were saying that they were listening and hearing this often, but it's an actual problem that I'm not sure that they really are addressing, the fact that we don't all have access to the internet in Alberta and how that skews results when we're looking at provincial testing.
No, that's great. Thank you. That's why we all have so many people. The second set of speakers, again from the government, we had actually 3 ADMs talking about child and youth well-being review. And so, you know, they talked about the results of the pandemic and different things and cross-ministry work and CASA mental health initiatives in schools and all the money that they've already announced and they keep re-announcing as if it's new funding. But I think they're becoming aware that, because even having people from 3 different ministries up front there, I think they're starting to get it, but we're still a long way. And this is why I'm really happy to hear that we're re-inviting our MLAs, because that didn't even happen last year. And, you know, that they have to keep hearing this too. The next presentation that we were given was from I think it was 4 different school divisions are involved in the Central Alberta Collegiate Institute. And that was really interesting to us because there is funding for these collegiate institutes. And we always thought it involved building a new brick and mortar school, but these 4 divisions are partnering with some post-secondary educations. And so we learned a lot about how that looks. And I think our brilliant admin are looking at ways that we can access that as well. Any questions on that? Or on the cross ministry? And then our last presentation was from Parkland School Division, which was about engaging stakeholders when making difficult decisions. And you know, they talk about school closures and things, different things like that. Another one that's going to rear its ugly head in this division in the next while, hopefully after I'm gone, is boundary changes and things like that. And again, the key to having the public trust you is to be very transparent and be very communication focused. And even then even if they don't agree with you, if they can understand why you're making the decisions, you get a lot less pushback or a lot less accusations of predetermined decisions. So, and I think it's good to remember that in our everyday work as trustees, that we have to come in with an open mind and listen to all the inputs and not have predetermined decisions. Oh, sorry.
What I found also really interesting is that, and what I've taken away from recent news is that we also have to realize that we may not always get acknowledged either, because that Parkland presentation was an incredible amount of engagement. And then I did see that the new school in Stony Plain opened just this week, and there was a public announcement where the Minister of Education congratulated the city of Stony Plain on their new school, which is fantastic. I'm glad that Stony Plain has a new school, but the term Parkland School Division was not included in that press release. And all of that work that went on, that we had such an in-depth presentation about what goes on behind the scenes, often doesn't get acknowledged at that next level. So I thought that was a really good lesson for me personally, is that you do sometimes have to just do the work and let it go and know that you did good in the end, or did the best that you could and engaged the right people. But the public will never really understand unless somebody is specifically holding their hand and telling them. And I think that's our job, is to make sure that we are sharing our stories too, and not just letting what comes out at the top level form the entire narrative. I thought that was an interesting juxtaposition.
Yes, thanks, Stacey. And our speaker that evening was Richard Hare. He's from the Calgary Board of Education. He's a retired trustee, and it was very entertaining and amusing. And some of the things he said was really specific to make sure that we promote public education. He said one of his regrets was that he didn't really push for Calgary to join the Public School Board Association. And my thoughts at the time were, well, why not? But, and the other really interesting thing is he never once referred to it as CBE or the Calgary Board of Education. He referred to it as Calgary Public Schools. So I thought that was interesting. So that was our PD learning. And the next day was our business meeting, which we had the reports, and we had a really interesting environmental scan. And this was regarding the standards for special education. So big thanks to our admin for giving me information so that we were able to provide a decent report on it from our point of view. There were a lot of similar sentiments echoed in the room. One interesting thing that Stacey pointed out and that I was able to include in the report is that the standards for special education includes gifted and talented students and programming for them. And really, how many boards in that room have the funding to provide that sort of, even programs like music and drama, they have to raise funding for their own. So, that was something I appreciated bringing up. Also, that brought up all the geographical challenges and the rural challenges and that sort of things as well. We also briefly went over all the mandate letters that were sent out to the new ministers, and we weren't given a lot of time, but there's a bit of discussion on that. And one of the main things that came up was cross-ministerial work in most of them. So our next meeting is February 8th. So that's a PSBC, a council meeting, but you're all invited to join us. That should be interesting. We're going to have some of our professional learning, our Clarice Anderson and Sheila Williams, their Aboriginal studies with Edmonton Public Schools. Holly Smith from Prairie Land and her superintendent, Joni Avram, who's always great presenter, and Pam Boiting. And Rick Massini from Medicine Hat will also be presenting with his superintendent. And the dinner guest speaker is Graham Thompson, one of my favorites. And I think that alone is worth the price of admission. So yeah, hope many of you, if you're interested, will join us on that one. And any other questions? Or Stacy, would you like to comment on anything?
Just that I just went onto the PSBA website to see, because I was just gonna look again at those dates. And look, our drumline is the header on their page. That's all.
Hey, thank you. 11, we have no unfinished business. 12, comments, question period. Is there any questions from our public or our virtual audience? Nope. Okay. Okay, you have to refresh my memory. Do we do the motion to go in camera and then make the break? Okay. Okay, so I would like to have a motion to go in camera. Tasha? All in favor? Unanimous. Okay. So we will take a break, our lunch break.